Welcome back. We are watching shares of Mattel after hours, a company reporting a surprise profit in the second quarter. Earnings per share coming in at 10 cents versus the expectation of a 3-cent loss. But revenue was down 12% on a year-over-year basis, certainly pointing to the fact that it was a challenging quarter here for Mattel. Akiko, consumers pulling back on some of their discretionary spending. Some of that obviously reflected in these numbers being toys here, and that you really have to question what this means for Mattel in the back half of the year leading up to that very important holiday quarter. We haven't even mentioned Barbie.
Well, I was going to say, there's been so much excitement around Mattel and the launch of the Barbie movie. Obviously, they had a record initial weekend box office returns there. But at the end of the day, there is a bit of reality setting in. And Mattel, just like so many other brands, really reliant on the consumer. The company talking about the consumer increasingly turning cautious on toys, leading to pull back in sales for North America. And by the way, they also reiterated their full year EPS guidance, which was a bit of a disappointment to some investors who were expecting maybe a big pop coming on the back of that massive marketing campaign around this movie.
Yeah, certainly. And their CEO there, Ynon Kreiz, telling our own Brian Sazi here, he was just speaking with him a few moments ago, that he's not too worried about these results. He's very encouraged by the reception that we have seen from the Barbie movie. He's hoping that that's going to translate into pretty strong sales of Barbie-related products down the line heading into the holiday season. But they spent so much money on this film. Yes, it is great in terms of publicity. Yes, it's really brought Barbie back into the conversation. Barbie's really taken over the conversation, it feels like, at least in our world, over the last couple of weeks. But whether or not that momentum continues and whether or not the strategy laid out by Mattel, if that's going to give them the edge against some of their competitors.
Well, it is about sort of bringing Barbie, to your point, back into relevancy. You know, what that means for the long term. They've resonated with a newer generation that maybe didn't necessarily really grow up with Barbies. I'm curious if the company sees a template, by the way, for this movie. They have many other toy brands there. Is that something they pursue down the line, given the success that we have seen so far? By the way, some other news coming through from Mattel. Richard Dixon, Mattel COO and president, now going to Gap to lead that name on the back of this success that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and you could argue that's a huge loss here for Mattel, given the fact that he played such an important role and a key role in the revival of Barbie, getting Barbie back into the conversation, and now really making it front and center of the conversation for Mattel now for almost about a year. So the fact that he is leaving the company, the fact that he will no longer be there for Mattel in terms of their helping shape their future direction, that I think is giving maybe Wall Street a little bit of pause.
It's really incredible, right? I mean, when you kind of just stop and think about the turnaround in the image of Barbie just by a single movie. I mean, when was the last time we talked about Barbie this much beyond Mattel and earnings?
It's been decades since I've talked about Barbie. I was never huge into the dolls, to be totally honest, but people grew up, especially in our generation. They love them. They collected everything when it comes to the dollhouses. And you go down the long list of every single Barbie that was created. People spent so much money on it and certainly fell out of the conversation given all the criticism that Barbie has received over the last 10 to 15 years. So the fact that they have been able to make these changes, the fact that it does, at least for now, seem to be resonating with the population, with those people, playing into that nostalgia effect. Obviously, it could be a good move here for Mattel going forward.
Yeah, looking at some other numbers from Mattel, by the way, we should point out inventory levels, something we look at with a lot of these retailers. Second quarter inventory levels down 18% from the previous year, and then full year free cash flow guidance about $400 million as well.